Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. Coming up, we'll see what's making the headlines with the consultant editor of the Daily Mail, Andrew Pearce, and the associate editor of the Daily Mirror, Kevin Maguire. And they'll be with us right through until midnight for our extended news review. So let's see what's on some of those front pages now. The Telegraph says that Downing Street has told head teachers they have to stop sending whole school bubbles home to self-isolate when just one pupil tests positive for COVID. The Guardian has a story about the safety of hosting the final stages of Euro 2020 at Wembley after Scottish fans who travelled to London for a match tested positive for coronavirus. The US and Japan have been conducting war games and joint military exercises so they can react if there's a conflict with China over Taiwan. That's according to the Financial Times. The Mirror leads with Princes William and Harry, reporting they're putting aside their differences as a statue of their mother, Princess Diana, is unveiled. The Sun looks ahead to Saturday's quarter-final, saying Harry Kane will do an Italian job on Ukraine in Rome. Three lions go to Rome alone, the headline in the Metro. And the Daily Star has a story about celebrities getting Botox. And we're joined tonight by Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire. Good evening to you both. Good to see you. So that story on the front of The Guardian, fears over mass events after large numbers of travelling Scotland fans tested positive for coronavirus, Kevin.
Yeah, no, absolutely. They're very big figures. At 2,000 Scots may have been infected watching football, including 400 who were in Wembley, 1,300 in all who came to London, because, of course, a lot of them came without tickets and had a good time. But that's a 400 figure. If it was in Wembley, Scotland had 2,600 tickets to that game, so that's 15%. Those figures are way ahead of what was recorded in the test events, including the FA Cup final, pop festivals, the World Snooker up in Sheffield, lots of other events. They're very high. It could be because of the nature of watching football is very close, lots of hugging, and certainly in London, lots of drinking. But the good thing is the link has been broken between infections and hospitalisations and deaths. We saw that in the figures today, the UK-wide figures, which showed the number of infections is at 26,000. That's the highest since the end of January, when it was 29,000. But back at the end of January, when it was 29,000, there were 1,245 deaths reported in the 24-hour period. Now there are only 14, because so many people are vaccinated. Way over 80% have had at least one jab, and including in that, as more than 60% have had two, and it gives a lot of protection. And those who tend to go into hospital and tend to die, alas, are unvaccinated or have underlying conditions.
Yeah, but this is a big concern, isn't it, Andrew, about these travelling fans, particularly when we've got the semi-finals and the finals coming up with increased capacity at Wembley for them. These were fans who were infectious at the time they travelled, according to Public Health Scotland, but they didn't know it. So inadvertently, were spreading the virus to those on the trains they travelled with, wherever they ended up.
Yeah, I know, but look, what's the alternative? Do we just go into stay at home and not go out again? Do we just stay in splendid isolation? We just got to learn to live with this wretched virus. And Kevin makes the point, and I agree with him, even though these numbers are higher, much higher than we saw at some of the trial events, such as the big art events and the concerts, where just a handful of people contracted COVID. A lot of the people will probably be younger. I saw a lot of those fans in central London before the Scotland match. They were in Leicester Square, where I do a radio show for LBC. There were thousands of them. They were under the age, most of them were in their 20s and 30s. There was no social distancing. There were no masks. There was a lot of boozing. They were all greeting each other very warmly and embracing. So I'm not surprised. But because of the vaccination rollouts proceeding ahead, I don't think we should pull up the stumps now and think, OK, let's stop people moving around the country. We've got to get on with our lives again now. And we're getting ever closer now to July the 21st. And we've got a health secretary now who's determined to get us out of these wretched restrictions. I think the country's at the end of its tether with them now, actually. We've put up with this for long enough now. And then when you get idiots like Matt Hancock gaily breaking the rules which he made and lectured the rest of us to adhere to, I think the chances of people staying at home and sticking at home are very limited.
Matt Hancock, of course, now facing pressure in his own constituency. That phrase there, we've got to learn to live with COVID, one we heard from the new Health Secretary, Sajid Javid, this week. Kevin, one of the ways we need to learn to live with it is keeping kids in school. The Daily Telegraph with that story, schools being told not to send home entire bubbles.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. The Telegraph say the Downing Street, the Prime Minister's spokesman, has said this. You can't get heads to change policy just on that, because the Education Secretary, Gavin Williamson, who is so useless, even Andrew thinks he's bad, has said they're still looking at it, but he hopes to change the rules, but it may not be before the summer holidays. Then if it's going to be changed after the summer holidays, you need to tell schools quickly, because the figures in England are incredible. 385,000 children at home, and that's about 1 in 25%, because 1 or 2 pupils will test positive in a bubble, which might be a class, it might be a year group, and then everybody is sent home, which means they miss education, and it creates utter chaos for parents who are working. And the proposal is, after trials, is to replace doing that, sending everybody home en masse, with testing in schools, daily testing in schools. And I think that's the way forward. But the Telegraph is saying, right, Downing Street said this. I didn't hear the Prime Minister say it today at Prime Minister's Questions. I didn't hear or see a press conference in Downing Street, because there wasn't one. The Education Secretary wasn't as certain. It's what he hopes to do, but he hasn't said it's going to happen. So schools and heads who have been incredibly flexible and have had to twist and turn with government policies. And Andrew normally attacks teachers and thinks they're inflexible. That's not been the case. They work brilliantly, and they've been very, very versatile. But they need proper guidance from the government. You can't just rely on a Daily Telegraph story based on something a Prime Minister's spokesman has said. That does not happen.
Well, Gavin Williamson did say today he's going to announce this, and he's hoping to do this in the next phase of lockdown easing, didn't he, Andrew? Head teachers will presumably be welcoming this, keeping children in school as much as possible. But the one message we've had throughout this pandemic is they want clarity. They want to know exactly what they're meant to be doing, and they want plenty of warning.
They do. Can I just say, Kevin Maguire, as usual, utterly misrepresents me. I do not always attack teachers. I think teachers do a great job on the whole. What I do, though, is attack his mates in the teaching unions, which seem to spend more time trying to keep teachers out of school than in the classroom. Their job is to educate, not to keep causing trouble. As for this story, though, I think it is amazing. The Telegraph has discovered 36 schools in England are closed altogether because of COVID, and yet the probability is only a handful of kids had symptoms of COVID. It is ridiculous, and we're now talking about testing every day for children. Well, that was being floated back in January by that intellectual titan called Gavin Williamson, the Education Secretary, and the idea collapsed and went away, and now it's coming back again. I think they've just got to get on and sort it out, because these kids cannot afford to miss any more education. Tuition at home, as a lot of mums know and dads know, is not easy. The poorer schools are often unable to provide decent teaching online. So let's get them back to school, even if, I think they should start next week if they can, but I suspect it will be in September. Yeah,
and I know it's the lesser of 2 evils, but wow, daily testing of 3 children at home might make for an interesting experience. Let's stick on the front of the Telegraph and the idea of a jab in each arm, so combining the flu vaccine rollout with booster vaccines for coronavirus, according to the JCVI. Kevin.
Yeah, starting from September, backed by Jonathan Van Tam, the Chief Medical Officer in England, who is a fantastic communicator. And the idea is, yes, from September, it'll be the over 50s and vulnerable people. And it is, again, how we learn to live with COVID. It's not going to disappear. It'll probably never be eradicated, or certainly not in the foreseeable future. So it's how do you deal with it? And one of the ways is keeping people immune. And we get those fantastic rates in the vaccines, 92% AstraZeneca, 96% with Pfizer. And scientists are so clever and adaptable and nimble. You can see that improving as they tweak it and learn to cope with new variants coming along. But it does mean, all right, in the autumn, get along. Those of us who will qualify, and I consider it needed, get along, get a flu jab, but also get your booster. It's going to be permanent now. You just feel it. It's just going to be part of the NHS. Is that combating this wretched virus, because it ain't going to go away. And if we want to have our lives back and the better parts of our lives to return, we're going to have to remain jabbed.
Andrew, it's all very well on the domestic front, isn't it, dishing out third doses for people, but when you've got other countries that are struggling to get access for first doses for their populations, how does this look?
It's a terrible dilemma, of course, and we have got a huge extra capacity because the government, unlike Kevin's mates in the useless European Union, bought masses and masses of vaccines early on. But I think the first job of the government is to get this country healthy, and I think we might, if we do need booster jabs in the autumn, then we must have them, because otherwise the alternative is we get dragged back into a lockdown, and nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. I'm pretty sure Sajid Javid, when he took that job as Health Secretary, made it absolutely clear to the Prime Minister, only if we come out of lockdown on July the 19th and we're not going back in. We will be able to help the rest of the world at some point. We are going to start giving some jabs. I think it's in September. That was all announced at the G7 summit. Not as many as we would like to, but I think we've got to put Britain first.
OK, let's have a very quick look, Kevin, at the Metro and a ceasefire in the sausage wars.
That's right. This is the government agreement, the treaty protocol that the government, Boris Johnson, negotiated, signed, said was fantastic. He's already dealing so on, but of course we know it's not, because it's created problems in Northern Ireland with the border down the Irish Sea. But there is now a ceasefire on chilled meats until September. So this isn't a problem resolved, it's a problem postponed, as negotiations will go on. But the fact is, the government signed up to it. And they always blame the European Union, but they were selling this as an excellent deal only a few months ago, because they were either blind or ignorant or just willfully lying about its impact.
OK, quick thought from you, Andrew, before we head to the break.
Well, I hope by September the 30th, when this 3-month truce expires, that dreadful Angela Merkel woman in Germany will have finally stood down. She's been there far too long. They never know when to go. And we may get some reasonable behaviour breaking out in the European Union. Would help even more if she take the horrible President Macron with her too.
You sit on the fence there, Andrew. We'll see you in just a moment. Let's take a brief pause. Coming up, more from the papers, including a reunion for the royal brothers and Princes William and Harry preparing to unveil a statue in honour of their mother.
We aim to be the best and most trusted place for news. There are hundreds of these turbines. That's what's left of the North Tunnel. This is a show of strength. Shrapnel from that explosion. This is nearly a week after the attack. It's a complete scene of devastation. To the heart of the stories that shape our world. We're not sure about the road. We're going to try and find a way out of Wuhan. We help you understand the world with us. Tom Cheshire, Sky News, Beijing.
Dan usaha saya menggarap lahan hutan.
Hello, or like we say in my language, Zole. I am Tonti, the founder and the CEO of Renewables in Africa. This picture changed my whole career and my whole life. My mission is simple, it's to bring back power to Africa. And our vision is to turn the dark continent that I saw in 2008 into a brighter and prosperous one by 2040.
Welcome back. You're watching the press preview. With me now, Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire. We're going to turn to the Mirror front page now, Andrew. And Prince Harry back in the UK, seen him tonight for the first time, and he and William are apparently to put their differences to one side for their mum tomorrow.
Yeah, well, normally all eyes would be on what the design of the statue of Princess Diana that they're going to unveil tomorrow in Kensington Palace is to mark her 60th, what would have been her 60th birthday in July. But actually all eyes would be on the body language between these two brothers who once were so close. Who can ever forget the image of young Harry and William walking behind their mother's coffin at that funeral back in 1997? But the feud between the two is well known now. Harry has spent a lot of his time in the United States pouring scorn on the royal family, enraging Prince William. But I think the fact that he's not brought his wife with him will help matters. Kate Middleton is staying away too, so I suppose it won't highlight quite so much that Meghan Markle isn't going to be there. Her excuse is she's looking after the baby.
I think it's a fairly good excuse. She's only just had a baby, Andrew.
Yeah,
Give her a break.
I think it is, but I think we also know that there'd be a pretty frosty reaction for her after all the abuse she's held at the royal family. And of course, don't forget, she's still the subject of some serious bullying allegations and an investigation into all of that at the palace.
I mean, Kevin, can they put those differences aside, or is it just a show tomorrow? I mean, we wondered whether the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral might be a catalyst for them coming together, and it appears not.
Yeah, I think Andrew was a bit characteristically hard-hearted towards Meghan Markle there when she has, as you say.
Not at all, not enough.
Just had a baby. But you would hope they would be able to bury their difference and their mother would bring them together. I'm not really sure why we're having a statue put up with her. I hope it looks like her. It's not going to be like one of those Ronaldo statues. That is nothing like it. But the fountain that they put her on never worked. I think it's just dry now, so in Kensington Palace. But they're going to put up this statue. They're both there. And you would hope they can just start on a human level, just seeing them as two individuals, two young men who, as boys, suffered the unimaginable tragedy of losing their mother very publicly and in such a horrific car crash, and I thought rather cruelly were made to march behind the funeral carriage. You just hope they can begin to bury their differences. And it's going to take time because they've grown so far apart. And I'm a Republican. I'm not a royal at all. But you would just hope on that human level that the two can somehow just find that more unites them than divides them, and it can just begin to get on, because it must be awful when a family splits like that.
Yeah, we've run out of time for the Metro. 3 Lions go to Rome alone. No chance for England fans to get there, but we will talk about that in the next hour. Kevin and Andrew, thank you.